cooling systems are widely used in our cars, especially in new energy vehicles. In fact, different cars use different cooling solutions in order to do a good job in the maintenance of cooling systems. We need to learn more the working principle and classification of cooling system. When electric vehicles work under certain conditions, will cause the power battery to accumulate heat. Therefore, effective heat dissipation is required to prevent battery performance degradation, or even smoke and fire and other thermal runaway accidents. Therefore, a cooling system needs to be added to the vehicle to ensure the healthy and efficient work of the power battery. Currently, the cooling sources of new energy vehicles mainly include liquid cooling, direct cooling, and air cooling. Each has its own advantages and disadvantages, mainly according to the positioning of the vehicle, and use them selectively. Therefore, it is necessary for us to understand the working characteristics of these cooling sources and their usage habits. First, let's learn the widely used liquid cooling system. Liquid cooling is a system using a liquid mixture as a heat exchange medium and uses a cooling pump to make the coolant circulate between the battery pack and the heat exchanger, thus making cooling management for the power batteries, because this cooling system uses liquid substances as a cooling source. It has a high cooling efficiency. However, this system requires additional liquid cooling plates and pipes, which increases the cost. Therefore, cars with high heat dissipation requirements usually use this cooling system, such as Gillam Grandev 450, Gillam Grandev 300 etc. Different from liquid cooling system. Direct cooling system is an efficient cooling system using refrigerant as a cooling medium to directly cool the power battery. To cool the power battery directly, it mainly condenser of a compressor refrigerant, throttling device evaporator, and high pressure pipe. The evaporator in the direct cooling system directly as the cold plate of the power battery. It is installed tightly at the bottom of the battery pack. The refrigerant evaporates in the evaporator and directly removes the heat from the power battery, thus achieving a faster and more efficient cooling process. At this point, students should realize that the direct cooling system, it directly absorbs the heat from the battery. Compared with liquid cooling system, it has a higher heat dissipation efficiency. It also has the advantages of compact structure and no risk of leakage. However, the evaporator's cooling plate, four-sided plate, can only be arranged around the battery box. It cannot penetrate between each battery core, which leads to the direct cooling system's poor balance in the battery cooling regulation, compared with the liquid cooling system, especially for high-capacity battery packs with tens of thousands of cells. Direct cooling ability to balance the temperature of the battery pack is worse. Based on the characteristics of direct cooling system, it is mainly suitable for vehicles with high power charging requirements, but cannot meet the needs of vehicles with high cruising range. Therefore, the direct cooling system has not been widely applied. Compared with the other two cooling systems, air cooling has lower cooling cost and has low cooling efficiency. Natural air cooling and air blast cooling are two common air cooling methods. Among them, natural air cooling has the worst cooling effect and the lowest cost and the least energy-consuming cooling form. It is mainly used for early small capacity, low energy density power battery packs, or as an auxiliary cooling method for modern power batteries. Air blast cooling is a method with air ducts inside the power battery, using a blower or air conditioning system to introduce air into the battery pack, to dissipate heat and cool. Due to the strong airflow of forced air cooling, it has a certain heat dissipation effect. Therefore, it is mainly used in hybrid vehicles with small battery capacity, such as Toyota Corolla hybrid vehicles. Since liquid cooling system is the most common cooling method, therefore, I will introduce the working principle of the liquid cooling system. The liquid cooling system mainly consists of a battery, water pump, heat exchanger, cooling pipe, an air conditioning system. When the liquid cooling system performs the cooling task, the battery water pump circulates the coolant between the power battery pack and the heat exchanger. During this process, heat exchanger is responsible, the high temperature coolant flowing out of the battery pack being in a low temperature state, to continue cooling the power battery pack. The reason why the heat exchanger has this ability is because the evaporator in the air conditioning system is integrated into the heat exchanger. When the air conditioning system is started, the low temperature and low pressure refrigerant will quickly absorb the high temperature coolant flowing through the heat exchanger. The above is the working principle of liquid cooling system. In this class, we learned about the function of the cooling system. Lower the temperature of the battery pack to keep it at the best working temperature. We also learned the classification of cooling systems. Liquid cooling system has the highest cooling efficiency. It has a complex structure, and the direct cooling system has a strong cooling ability, but it cannot achieve temperature balance. Air cooling system has low cooling efficiency, but it's the cheapest. Finally, please think about why liquid cooling system is the current mainstream cooling form. What will be the breakthrough point of cooling systems in the future?